Hi, fourth grade. So we're going to talk about Leonardo da Vinci. He's a Renaissance painter. He's a really impressive overall person, an inventor, a sculptor, philosopher. He was a scientist, so many different things. But he did something incredible. He was an incredible artist. He measured people and he painted many, many people and drew many, many people and studied humans. And what he discovered is that even though we're all so different and every single person looks different and groups of people look different, we're all also really similar. So we have the same features, even though they might look differently, but what he discovered is that our proportions are really similar. So proportion is the thing that we're really going to focus on, and we're going to create a self-portrait. So I suggest that you find some sort of a mirror or hang out in the bathroom by your bathroom mirror, get yourself set up. You might want a ruler. You don't have to have a ruler. You need to have a piece of paper. It should probably be white. You may want to print out my template that I'm going to attach to either trace or to help you or just as a guide. If you don't have a printer, you can, or if you don't want to, you can absolutely draw this, and you're going to need a pencil with a good eraser, okay? So minimum white paper, pencil, some sort of a mirror, even if you kind of use your phone or your tablet and kind of like project it at yourself. Okay, so Da Vinci, so cool. He created these universal proportions, and he discovered that the sizes of the features of our face, and even actually our whole body, but we're just doing the face, are the same, like compared to each other. Proportion is when you take the size of one part and compare it to everything else. And today we're going to focus on the guideline. So if I were to tell you that the eyes were in the middle of your face, would you think I was totally crazy, like crazier than normal? Probably. Most of my fourth graders think I'm totally nuts. So let's just talk about it. If you were in my classroom, we would do this together. If you put your hand at the very top of your head, your eyes are not the top of your head. This is not the top of your head. Up here is. So if you were to put your hands at the top of your head and measure, keeping your ruler very, very straight, vertical, I'm having a tough time, and you were to figure out where your chin, which is the bottom, lines up on your ruler, okay? Let's see, mine is 8 inches, so my face is 8 inches. Wow, I have a really big head. Okay, so if I were to divide 8 by 2, what's 8 divided by 2? Everybody? So if my eyes were halfway divided by 2 down my face, they should line up at the number 4. Let's see if they do. Okay. Do my eyes line up at the number 4? Wow. Look at that. The number 4. Whoa. Am I an alien or am I a relatively normal looking person? Don't answer that. Okay. So your eyes actually are halfway down your face. So if this is 4 inches, your nose is actually halfway between your eyes and your chin. So my nose should be at the 2, and it is. And then if you were to divide the space between your nose and your chin, halfway down is your mouth. So if I were to divide it, this space is 2 inches, right? And then my mouth would be at the 1, okay? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to take a look at it. And you know what? I challenge you, take a look at photographs. Take a look at and divide the face in with the guidelines that we're going to learn today, and you're going to see that it's true. If you still don't believe me, just go with it. And at the end of this project, I promise you're going to have some sort of a really real looking face. If you go off on your own and you say, no way, I don't believe her, I'm putting the eyes where I want and the nose where I want, you're entitled to that. You're the artist. It's not going to look very real. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create this, which I have on my template. So you're either going to trace it or line it up or make your own. Line of symmetry, eye line, nose line, mouth line. Then I'm going to show you how to draw like a super realistic eye. So we're going to go from this eye to this eye. And you don't have to draw the eye, but if you want to try to draw some eyes, like practice it, that's what we would be doing in my classroom if I saw you every single week. Go for it, right? I'm not going to stop you. And then we're going to draw 2 eyes just on the eye line and then turn it in. Save your work and we're going to do the rest next month. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so for this lesson, we're going to talk about the principle of proportion, and we're going to apply it to a realistic portrait, or more specifically, a self-portrait, so a picture of you. What is proportion, you may ask? Well, it's when you compare the size of one object in an artwork to the size of another object in an artwork. Everything has to be the right size compared to the other objects, or it won't look real. You can also compare the height and width of depth of objects. So if you're trying to make a cube, the height, width, and depth have to be equal in size, or it will not actually be a cube. You can compare the size of the area of one area to the size of another area. So if you are trying to draw your laptop, you want your computer screen area to be approximately the same size as the keyboard area, or the laptop won't look realistic. And you can compare the amount of space between 2 or more elements. So if you were to draw a picture of your hand and you left way too much space in between your fingers, it would be out of proportion and not look realistic. Often, proportion is not even noticed until something is out of proportion, such as if a person has a head larger than their entire body, it would be out of proportion. So we can see that the head on the Bitmoji is way bigger than the body, but the actual photograph is in proportion and the head is not bigger than the entire body. So this is one of the most famous paintings in the world. Hopefully you know it. Do you know what it's called, or even who made it? Well, I do. It's the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Here's Leonardo da Vinci on the left. He was a Renaissance painter who studied the human body and discovered that we all have basically the same proportions, meaning all of the parts of our body are the same size compared to the other parts of the body. So our head is smaller than the width of our shoulders, our hands are the same size as each other, but my proportions are the same as most other adult proportions, and your proportions are the same as most other kids' proportions. So he discovered that our proportions are all basically the same. But that's not all he did. He was also an inventor, a scientist, a sculptor, an engineer, and an architect, among other things. His notebooks were filled with ideas for inventions, including the parachute, the war tank, the diving suit, the ancient robot, the ultimate cannon, the pre-automobile, and a combo instrument that included a harp, organ, and viola. He was amazing. Da Vinci was constantly studying the body and working to improve his art. He took many measurements and was always trying to find a perfect balance so that his art had proportion. By drawing guidelines like Da Vinci, you can figure out where features go and what size they should be. If we split the face in half, it helps us to remember that both sides of the face are mostly the same. So here we have our line of symmetry. If we line up our eye line, then we know exactly where to place our eyes when it's time to draw our eyes. If we measure where our nose and mouth go, we can use a guideline to help us to gauge exactly where they should go in order to be the right size and placement. This will help you make a portrait that looks realistic. So, despite what you think, your eyes are not in the top portion of your face. If you look at the person in the picture, you would normally have either a hat or hair in the top part of the head. The eyes are actually, in fact, in the middle of the head. So halfway from the top of the head to the eye line should be where the eye line is. So halfway from the top of the head to the chin is where the eye line is. So this space here should be equal to this space here. If not, so your eyes are located halfway up or in the middle of your face. If not, it does not look realistic. It looks out of proportion. So it's important that you follow the rules of where the proportions go, even if you think maybe you don't agree. Trust Leonardo da Vinci. He kind of knew what he was doing. So let's take a look at this drawing. This is a fairly realistic looking boy, and he has a line of symmetry, meaning the left side and the right side are pretty much symmetrically balanced. The eye line is in the center of the space from the top of the head to the chin. The nose line actually is halfway between the eye line and the bottom of the chin. So if we take this bottom half of the face and divide it in half, I know you guys are doing fractions in 4th grade, that's where the nose line is. And if you take the bottom part of that from the nose line to the chin, that is exactly where we keep our mouth line. And this is how we draw the face in proportion, by setting up these guidelines. So today we're also going to just draw eyes. So we'll set up the guidelines and then draw some eyes together. So let's quickly talk about the parts of the eye before we get started. So the eye is actually a lemon or an almond shape. Not exactly an oval, because if you notice, we have a corner here and a corner there. So it's round and long with 2 corners. We have an eyeball, which is the white part of the eye. We have the iris, which is the colored part of the eye, which actually sometimes is camouflaged or blends in with the darkness of the black pupil. That's in the center of the eye. The pupil is so interesting because it expands when there is not very much light to let the little light that there is in, and it contracts when the light gets turned on. If you take a moment when this video is done, or if you pause the video right now and look in the mirror, and while you're looking at your eye, your pupil, look at how big it is, and then quickly shut off the lights, what do you think will happen? That black circle will get bigger. And as soon as you turn the lights off, that black circle will shrink to block the light from coming into your eyes, because that hurts our eyes. So we have our iris, which is the bigger circle, touches the top and the bottom of that almond shape, and the pupil is the black circle, fully colored in the center. We also have a tear duct. It's the pink small shape that's in the corner of our eye by our nose, which is where our tears come from. And we have our eyelid. It's simply just a curved line above our eye that indicates that we would be able to close our eye and open it. And if we look at the actual photograph down here, you can't necessarily see that bottom eyelid because it recedes into the skin. Especially children won't see that because you have much tougher skin than older people, like your art teacher, so you won't be seeing that wrinkle underneath your eye, just above your eye. So here we can see a very realistic drawing of an eye, and then one that's not so realistic. We need to be careful to make sure that when we're drawing, we're not using thick lines like spider leg eyelashes, and that we are using a lot of value in shading to make it look realistic. So do not forget to save your work after this project, because we're going to be working on it again next month. So please don't lose it, because we're going to add to it. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so for this project, we're going to create a self-portrait using guidelines. I will attach a template for the guidelines. If you would like to use it as a guide, you can place it under a piece of white paper and trace, not trace all of it, but use it as a template underneath, or you can do it your own way. I'm going to show you how to do it your own way. It's a little difficult, and in our classroom, I would give you a template. So essentially, you'll start with an egg shape, and the reason it's an egg shape and not an oval is because the head is wider at the top and more narrow down by the chin. So if you put your hands on your chin and your head, the top of your head, you can feel that it's wider at the top and more narrow towards the bottom, okay? Now, I did draw pretty dark for this just so everyone can see. You will draw as lightly as you can because as we go along, you will be adjusting this head shape if you are drawing your own. We're going to draw a line of symmetry down the center. If you have a ruler, you might want to use it. If you don't have a ruler, just do the best that you can. Now again, I drew my dotted line pretty dark so that you can see it on the video, but I think that you should try to draw it as lightly as you can. So the reason we have the line of symmetry is because most of the things on this side of the face are mirrored on the other side of the face. So symmetrical balance is something we talked about in 3rd grade. This should be ringing some bells for you guys. And I'm again already adjusting the shape of my egg shape. So as we talked about, the head is from the very top of the head, not your forehead, not the top of your hairline, to the chin line. And halfway, so I have about 8.5 here, halfway, so that would be what, 4 1/4, halfway down would be your eye line. And that seems pretty far down. And if you agree, you are just like every 4th grader I have ever taught, and in some cases, just like a lot of adults that I have taught. But if you take a ruler and a mirror, like I showed you in the beginning, and you measure your own head, or you measure a photograph or a magazine picture of a person that's realistic, you will see that if you measure correctly, the eyes are in the approximate center. So now I'm going to take this bottom half and I'm going to divide that in half, and that is going to be my nose line, but we're not drawing the nose today. I'm just going to draw it. Again, draw this lightly or you'll end up with dotted lines all over your paper. And then I'm going to take from the nose to the chin line and I'm going to divide that in half, and that will be my mouth line. And the nose line actually helps us to figure out where to put the ears and the chin as well. So let's double check. We should have an egg shape, wider on top and narrow on the bottom, a line of symmetry dividing it exactly on the left and the right, and an eye line. It should be exactly halfway from the top of the head to the chin. Your hairline is going to go about here, so we're really only talking about like forehead, eyebrows, and then eyes, so it's not really even a lot of space. This is all your hair. And then your nose line, when you take from your eye line to the chin, divide that in half. So this space should be equal to this space, and divide the bottom half in half, and that's your mouth line. I will again include a template. Feel free to print it and slip it underneath your picture, underneath your paper, and trace from it. So if you take a piece of white paper, and computer paper is really good, now you can just barely see, but if you put it up to a window, you'll be able to see, or if you put a light under it, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. And and trace the sorry, now that I played with my light, it is no longer behaving itself. And you can trace your face. So let's talk about the eyes. So the eyes, we really do not want to draw an eye that is round, right? That's not a realistic looking eye. So we know that our eye is an almond shape. So we want to start with an eye a line that goes around like a rainbow almost, and then one that goes down like this, and we have 2 points on either end. But our iris does not float around on the inside. Your iris, which is the colored part of your eye, should touch the top and the bottom and be mostly a circle. There is a dark outline around that, so once you get a shape that you like, and I would wait until you draw both eyes, you would make it a little bit darker. The pupil would go in the center. You don't want to make it that small because it'll look like your person is scared or has a flashlight shining in their eyes. Color in the pupil black. Now look in the mirror and see what your iris color is. Is it very dark? Is it medium? Is it light? If you can't tell the difference between your iris and your pupil, hopefully you looked at the video and the selection before this, and you saw what a light colored iris looks like, because it's easy to tell the difference between the iris and the pupil. But if you have a dark colored iris, then you're coloring this with a very dark value. I'm coloring a medium value, but if you have a light colored iris, then you're coloring a super light value. So it really you want this to look like your eye, right? And I'm just going to clean up the outside a little bit. And then I take my eraser and I am going to erase out a little bit of a highlight. Okay, I have a dark outline around my iris, a highlight, a pupil. Pupil is the part that gets bigger and smaller. If this is my nose here, and this would be my ear, I'm going to put my tear duct there, and then I'm going to put one eyelid over. Okay, we're not going to add in the eyebrows. If you have dark eyelashes or long eyelashes, you might want to make this line longer, darker, excuse me. If you have very, very light eyelashes, I would hold off. If you want this picture to look like you, I think that you should try to observe your features and make it look like you. So if your eyelashes are dark or long, the top line, make it a little darker. Now we don't want to make each individual eyelash like this, because that's going to look like spider eyelashes. If you look at the tip of your pencil, even a mechanical pencil is thicker than those teeny tiny eyelashes that fall out of your eyes. So if you want to make it look realistic and you have to include your eyelashes, normally I would just do this and call it a day. If you need to include your eyelashes, on the side opposite of the nose and tear duct, add a little bit of texture and value, but don't go crazy. Just keep it subtle, or else it will look a lot like spider eyelashes. Okay, so this is going to give you the suggestion of eyelashes without making it look like spider eyelashes. So let's get started. Let's talk about this. We want to have one whole eye space in between the eyes and a half of an eye space on either side. And your eyes do not go up here. If you want full credit, keep them on your eye line, even though you might think that that is too low. So real lightly, I'm going to start with the shape. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of my fourth graders struggle with this part and making sure that they're exactly the same. Don't stress it. If you draw light, you can adjust the shape. And honestly, we're fourth grade. It is okay if they don't look exactly the same. Okay? Okay, mine don't even look exactly the same. I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. So like I said, the iris is a circle that touches the top and the bottom of those two eyelids. We don't want to draw that bottom eyelid because you've got to have a lot of wrinkles if you can see your bottom eyelid. Okay, pupil is nice and dark. Iris might be nice and dark. Okay, it's never white. The rest of the football or the almond shape is white. Okay, hopefully you'll color slower and more carefully than I am for full credit. You can take your finger and kind of blend it a little bit and erase away some more of the white. If you give yourself a highlight, it should be in the same place in each eye, because your light source will be in the same place in each eye. Pupils will go, they're uncolored, and they go in towards the line of symmetry. And add in your eyelid. We're going to skip the eyebrows for today, and we'll talk about them next week. So just head, guidelines, eyes, and take a picture and submit it. Try not to lose this, because this is not the end of our face, okay? This is just the beginning, okay? I can't wait to see your beautiful eyes.